Welcome to Unschool, where we undoctrinate you from public school nonsense. Today we're talking about some of the most useless degrees in college, of which there are many. Now, I've been quite critical of the humanities degrees in the past, but we're going to criticize a wide variety of degrees and the mentality that people use in order to get into them. So, this article from Fast Company says most people have more than one passion. He says knowing which to follow can be difficult. From the other perspective, a lot of new graduates may not even be able to answer the question. That is quite true for teenagers. What are you passionate about? Many of them are taking 6 to 8 years to graduate because they don't know what they want to do. If you don't know what you want to do, how can you know what your passion is? And a lot of them are spending tens of thousands of dollars to not learn what their passion is. The reality is, you have a lot of different passions, and you probably shouldn't pick a college major just because of that. You might want to go towards something that can actually get you a job because it costs money to get a degree, so you're going to need to pay for it. And in addition to being specific enough to be helpful, following your passion could doom you to fail. Passion does not equal competence. As a result, it's possible that your passion for something would limit your career opportunities. My recommendation is you pick something that can get you a job and then you make yourself passionate about it. Being productive, being useful, that can make you feel good about yourself. It's far better than a lot of the public school indoctrination that kids suffer through while spending thousands of dollars of sometimes their parents' money or money they're going to have to pay back in the future. Making your passion your job can also impact how you feel about it. There we go. Often passions fuel you because they're a break from your everyday work. For example, you may love to paint or tinker with cars. Yes, do you really want your hobby to be your job? Because it will make your hobby a lot more stressful when you have to adjust your hobby to other people's needs. That's what a lot of people don't take into consideration. You may want to start a bike shop or completely reinvent how people view bikes. But then you start your bike shop and unfortunately you just end up selling, Huffies or something. I don't know. I don't know what's popular nowadays, but Huffies were the cheap bike when I was a kid. And, my Huffy was all right overall, but it wouldn't be your passion necessarily to sell one of the cheaper bikes. But in order to stay in business, that might be the thing that you do because you can sell larger quantities of them. So maybe it's not always great to turn your passion into your career. Sometimes it's good to have a passion that can get you away from work and kind of, shut your brain off for a while. Following your passion also puts you at risk of burnout. When you're in the job you're passionate about, you can get exploited, Mitchell says. You may be tempted to work 20 hours a day. The employer is going to say, hey, this is fantastic. I'm paying dirt for this, and they're working like crazy. I can't say that was my passion, but I used to work like that when I was in the beer and wine industry, um, merching and working in the warehouse, and then eventually sales. So, anyways, yes, developing skills is more useful, and so to do that, you have to pick something, and you have to keep working towards it. And in the process, you learn greater transferable skills, gain a bit of confidence, and you learn that if you choose to pick something else later on, you can adjust and figure out how to do it. That's really the most important thing. All right, so moving on, what are some of these degrees that people find useless? I was a bit surprised to see advertising on the list, but they make the point in this article from Ed Smart that you need to be more focused. You need a greater niche uh, than just something generic like advertising. Digital marketing and e-commerce and sports marketing are all specific goals. For example, I've been okay at digital marketing. Had a few Facebook pages that almost a million people were a part of before I sold them, and but I'm not as good at e-commerce. So there's specific skill sets there that you have to learn. Anthropology and archaeology, you know, um, because of movies, these have maybe become more popular and they are interesting. I find I don't know anything about archaeology, but anthropology, parts of that I certainly find interesting, but you can't really turn it into a career path. unless you're going to work in education, and then you have to probably get a master's degree or a doctorate in order to keep working in it. Art history, I had to take an art class for one of my degrees, which I didn't need because it was business, but they required me to take one. So I took art history. And guess what? That was one of the greatest classes ever. It was really interesting. The teacher was really funny. He also had Tourette's and swore all the time. So I enjoyed that to some extent, but it's not something that you should major in because it's really unlikely that you could get a job. If you're interested in art, I would say, do art. Communications, this is another degree that's really generic, probably not smart to take. It's what a lot of people who don't really want to be in college end up taking. There's kind of a stereotype that athletes get communications degrees, which is unfortunate. There are some uses to it, but unfortunately, as it says here, it's so broad that it's difficult to get out there and get a job with that degree. Computer science is also too generic. These days, you need to focus on a more specific niche, or it's not going to help you get a job, or you got to go and get higher level degrees. Creative writing, you can write a book without having a degree in creative writing, and everyone wants to write a book and get on Amazon or something. So everyone wants to write a novel, so it's pretty competitive, and most people don't make money in that career path. And if they do get into writing, something like journalism or what have you, then it's very competitive, and the people who run the websites that ask you to write are going to be trying to get you to do things to write things that are much more controversial and probably not what you set out to do originally. Criminal justice also sounds quite interesting, but it might be more useful to go get a JD or something than a criminal justice degree. If you want to be a police officer, then it can certainly help you to some extent with a criminal justice degree. But quite a lot of people who become police officers have other educational backgrounds. It's not really required, and they're going to train you, for months, and then you often go back to do more training if you want to have a career in police work. Culinary arts, I went to a school where this was popular, and I don't recommend getting that degree. I can't imagine spending $20,000 per year or something so that you can go run a restaurant. That's one of the riskiest businesses there are. So, more power to the people that major in this and find a way to be successful. But it creates a lot of problems sometimes. So this says choosing a culinary or trade school over a conventional degree or university degree could be a more prudent decision for those genuinely dedicated to forging a career in the culinary arts. So learning how to actually make food as opposed to just learning about the culinary profession probably makes more sense. Educational degrees, these are obviously mainly for teachers. They're also very much into indoctrination these days and pushing ideology over education. My understanding is in education degrees that they never study anything practical. Not even, hey, here's how you might consider grading people's papers. So you get quite a lot of variety there when people come out. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. I'm just saying there's very little in education degrees that actually focus on how to teach. It's more like ideology, pushing critical theory, pushing Paulo Freire's nonsense, the pedagogy of the oppressed. So these degrees really aren't worth it. It's better to get, if you're going to be a teacher, it's better to get a degree that's specific to what you want to teach. These education degrees are too specific. Some people will get a doctorate degree in education because they want to move up into administration. So I suppose that's understandable. Entrepreneurship may also be too generic, but depends a lot on what you want to do. You should be learning practical skills as well. If you're going to get an entrepreneurship degree, then start a business while you're doing it, even if it's small. I think that should be a requirement. Ethnic and civilization studies. Hey, Civilization, the video game, is fun, so you could possibly become an absolute expert in that, but it presents other problems. So let's see here. So it could be interesting, and I don't really know what's in ethnic studies, but it seems like something that would focus on critical race theory, so I wouldn't recommend it. Fashion design sounds fun, but again, something that everyone wants to do. Quite a lot of people, so it's quite competitive. And, you know, it's probably too generic. Once again, film and video could be fun, but there's tons of people with a YouTube channel. They learn their editing skills on the job. Languages, again, sound fun, but lots of people can do it. I tested out all my German classes in college, and I didn't have to do anything. So maybe I could have gotten a language degree quite easily, but it's not going to be all that useful. There's pretty limited numbers of positions for translators, and you got to be really good to be able to translate on the fly. So, so a lot of these other majors you're going to get if you want to be a teacher, right? Psychology, you can get a degree in that, but it's not going to be useful to you unless you decide to go further along into master's degrees and so on. On to the next article. What do they recommend? What do they say? Oh, here we go. Top 11 most useless majors. Dance. Although you may be highly skilled at Dance Revolution. You could spend, $25,000 on a dance degree and then beat all your friends at DDR. So, maybe that's worth it. Drama and theater. Yeah, even if you got into this career path and you got into Hollywood, the average career in Hollywood is similar to professional sports. It's like 3 years or something. So the idea that you're going to make enough money to pay off your degree is pretty ludicrous. It would make more sense to get some other job, I suppose, work in lighting or building sets or camera work or something like that. It might be more practical, but I'm not an expert on that particular topic. So it says here, what should you do instead? Considering a different major or double major in business and theater, you're much more likely to work in a creative industry if you get some practical skills and you're a bit more industrious as a person. Music, people do this when they're teenagers. They start rock bands in their 20s without degrees all the time. So depends again on what you want to do. Photography, everyone wants to be a photographer. I've traveled to 30 countries, so I've taken tons of photos. I can frame a shot all right, although I'm not an expert with a camera. It's probably something that could be learned. And so everyone's doing it now, so it's again pretty competitive. Some of these we kind of talked about already. There's tons of jobs in healthcare, but maybe not for this specifically, right? In nursing, there's just they have tons of people getting nursing degrees now. The total number of people continues to go up for nursing degrees, and they still can't fill all the positions. Boomers are getting older, so there's tons of work in that particular industry, and there will be for a while. But maybe, nursing is a very intensive job, intensive career path that will teach you more practical skills. So there's certainly benefits there. And getting in the STEM fields could be helpful. Biology, while interesting, is something else that you'll have to go on beyond undergrad to get master's degrees or doctorate degrees if you want to be useful. So, and then they have some other ones. Teaching degrees, ESL, I don't know why you get that degree. Again, I taught ESL. I don't have a degree in ESL. I have a business degree, a couple of business degrees and an IT degree. And I stopped, back then I just had undergrad international business degree. Also should maybe be on this list of degrees that you shouldn't get. Better to get, maybe just a business administration degree with a minor in international business or something like that. If you're going to focus on international business, then you're probably going to end up in sales. Missionary studies, you may want to get that if your goal is to get into missionary work, to become a priest or something like that, to become a nun. But and that's fine. But you're probably not in it for the money. So that's also true with a lot of these other degrees we've mentioned already. If you're not in it for the money, but be able to pay it off. Find a way to pay it off so you're not putting it on the society to pay for your pet interests. Okay, acting or theater arts, film, anthropology, civilization, basically all of these we've covered already. So don't get these degrees. English degrees, and we could use better writers, though. That seems to be getting worse. But, some of the people I know with English degrees became teachers worked in banks, or quite a wide variety of different jobs that have absolutely nothing to do with their major. But hey, at least in the workplace, they're probably one of the better writers there. History, I find this really interesting, and I read about history all the time in my own personal time, but it's not a great opportunity for a job. All right, interior design, people do that all the time as well without a degree. So, you know, maybe instead of interior design, you get into flipping houses or something. All right, marketing, maybe. A lot of people get that degree and still find jobs, but you're going to have to work your way up. Don't be expecting a six-figure salary right off the bat, because you're going to have to get industry-specific knowledge, and you're going to have to get, uh, you know, major on a specific theme, like we mentioned earlier, e-commerce, digital marketing, something like that. All right, so I'm still setting this article up that we're going to publish soon on my unschool Substack, where we're going to work a little bit on discussing what you could do instead of some of the degrees we mentioned before. Vocational work is always a great opportunity. Learning complementary skills, getting practical experiences, and being willing to adapt to change. Those are all great. I don't recommend following your passions if following your passions involves spending tens of thousands of dollars and focusing on something that you're not sure is going to land you a job in the future. All right. Anyways, unschool out. Please subscribe to get more of my shenanigans.